Yo, what is up, y'all? My name is Devin, and today I'm gonna be taking y'all through every single change I experienced on testosterone. The title of this video, I'm thinking testosterone change checklist. That's kind of how we view our changes when we first either take that shot of testosterone, or you're rubbing in the gel or the pellet, or whatever your method of administration is. That's pretty much the first second that we start to kind of pinpoint, okay, this changed, that changed. I think my voice dropped. I think I had some bottom growth, something tingled down there, right? I'm gonna be taking y'all through the exact time that I experienced these changes, and some of these happened a little bit later than I initially anticipated they would. I was definitely guilty of comparing my transition and my changes on testosterone to other people. You may be surprised by how late some of these changes kicked in. Before I get into that, if you are interested in one-on-one coaching, you're trying to get these gains, definitely feel free to email me, or you can also check out my website, which is also going to include my high protein cookbook, Healthy Doesn't Suck, as well as my training plan, Mask Made Simple. So just some context here. I have been on shots of testosterone since I first began in 2020, I think is when I started. 2020. I'm coming up on 6.5-ish years on testosterone here. Various methods of testosterone administration does have an impact on how fast or how slowly you will experience these changes. Most of my clients and homies that I see that are on gel, some of them do experience a little bit of a delay in those changes, and sometimes that's intentional, right? A lot of people who are NB, or a lot of people who just want to take it nice and slow, will do the gel method of administration just because they don't want all those changes at once. Just one thing to consider with that in mind, we all have different genetics. Skipping a little bit ahead here, but I don't have amazing facial hair genetics. I mean, I am glad that I'm able to grow something, because I've been looking at some cis guys and I see they're my age or older and they don't even have, this to work with. So I'm like, okay, bro, I got something going on for myself. The first change that I did notice right away was just a difference in my headspace, a difference in my mood. I would say from week 3 onwards, because that's when that testosterone really does, reach a good saturation level. At that point, I had already taken 3 shots. I did start to feel that my brain was processing information different. I worked in a little bit of a hostile environment. My coworkers were low-key jackasses, and they were often putting me in situations where I had to fend for myself verbally. So I noticed that a lot of little sly remarks that they would give me, talking to customers and stuff, because I didn't work in the best area at that time. I wasn't as quick to let things go. Before I was on testosterone, somebody could have said some weird stuff to me, some shady stuff, and I would have just been like, why did they say that? But being on testosterone for 3 weeks to a month, I was like, yo, what did you mean by that, by the way? What did that mean? Why are you saying that? I would call that sort of thing out sooner. I would call it out. I wouldn't let it slide. So that's the first thing I noticed. So I would say moving on to around the 2 to 3 month mark, I still didn't really notice any crazy voice changes or anything like that. But what I did notice was my body temperature. So my body temperature ran a little bit hotter. I noticed that I was sweating and having hot flashes, where I would be like, yo, bro, are you hot? Is it hot right now? And the people I was talking to were like, no, Devin, the AC is on, bro. It's not hot, that's only you. So I was like, testosterone. And every change that I noticed came from testosterone. I was beyond happy, bro. Even the weird, funky hot flashes, oh baby, I was happy to have that. I did not care. In the same trend, another one of those first changes that I picked up on was my body odor and just, I guess, my pheromones. When I was working out, I would be a little bit mustier, right? Just not smelling as good. And then when I would get home from the gym, my girlfriend at the time would be like, by the way, Devin, you stink, brother. So before I was on testosterone, I would get away with going to the store after I was working out to grab some food real quick. But nowadays, and after being around, I would say 4 months on testosterone, I have to take my butt straight home after the gym, or else I put everyone else at risk of dying from body odor. So that is one of the first external changes that I noticed as well. And since we're still at the start of the changes that I began to feel, I didn't really get into any of the juicy stuff yet. I do just want to remind y'all that everyone's changes does happen at a different pace. I just remember at the time feeling like everything was happening so slow. I got a little bit scared, right? At 4 months, I didn't really notice my voice was changing, and I was thinking, bro, am I not gonna have a deep voice? Is my voice not gonna drop? Or I was barely getting facial hair. I was getting 1 or 2 hairs on my chin, and I was like, well, I'm cooked. Testosterone doesn't work on me. I genuinely at a certain point thought to myself, it just doesn't work. And that's not the case. Testosterone literally does work. It's not possible for testosterone to do nothing to your body. So if you're in those beginning stages and you're just starting out and you're like, oh my God, I hope it works, there's no other choice but for it to work, because that's just how physiology and hormones. So the next change within that first kind of 6-month time frame that I noticed was strength. Now, I had been working out for, I would say, about 2 years prior to starting testosterone. I wasn't going too hard in the paint, but I was in the gym. I was loosely tracking my lifts, and I was noticing that, you know, after that 4 to 5 months, 6 months on testosterone, I didn't have to fight for my life as much within training, and I felt much more emboldened to try out heavier lifts, right? Before I was on testosterone, I went to no parts of a bench press. I didn't want to do anything with free weights. I was just always sticking to the machines, always sticking to the cardio, sticking to the treadmill. But then when I started testosterone, I felt more comfortable getting underneath the bar. I felt more comfortable picking up, you know, a set of dumbbells and trying to do curls or trying to do shoulder press, right? That's part of that mental change as well. But I also did develop the strength to handle some weight. I wasn't lifting up the gym, but being 4, 5, 6 months on testosterone and being able to like shoulder press the 30-pound dumbbells, that was something. That was some pretty quick progress. And I just noticed that the weight was adding up quicker in the gym without me having to kill myself to make it happen. Honestly, that was one of the most gratifying changes that, to this day, I remember being in the gym and the moment when like I stopped comparing myself to other guys, because for so long I was going to the gym and I would be looking at the weight I was using, and then I would look over at like a dude and the weight that he was using, and I would be like, oh, I guess I just suck. I guess I'm just a weak little biatch. And I remember at a certain point I was just kind of like, you know what, bro, I'm trying my best. Some cis guys were weaker than me, and that was when I had this aha moment of like, oh, strength is something to be developed. It's not necessarily genderly based. So I will say around that 7th plus mark is when I did notice my voice started to change. Before that 6th, 7th month mark, I was always making my voice deeper. Like I was speaking from my throat instead of speaking from like my stomach. So whenever I would like answer calls or anything, I would try to make my voice deeper, and I would be like, yeah, it's Devin. Or like even I have an old YouTube video of being like 4 months on testosterone, and I'll clip it somewhere over here, but I'm talking like
deadlifts. I usually did 1 plate, 145 with 225s. I started doing 2 plates. But now since the gym got shut down, I'm probably gonna go back to how I was before. But that's as far as like strength or whatever.
My name is Devin and this is my voice. And at a certain point, I would say around that 6th, 7th month mark, I didn't have to do that anymore. My voice was naturally deep. And by the way, like, I don't think I was really fooling anyone with doing that weird, deep, freaking podcast voice, but it made me feel better about myself, so I'm definitely not gonna judge baby Devin. So bottom growth was definitely something that happened around that 7-month mark as well. And I'll be honest, it's something that I was looking for from the first month on, and it wasn't giving anything for those first couple of months. I have to be so honest with you guys. And I was thinking like, come on, bro, give me something to work with. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And I know a lot of people I've been offered from brands and stuff like that to collaborate on like pumps and stuff like that. It's not for me. I don't need to do that. It's fine. I do have bottom dysphoria, but at the end of the day, my body is my body. It's what the universe gave me to work with. It is what it is. No bottom surgery for me, at least not at the current moment. I'm very much so a blood and surgery averse person. Top surgery for me was pretty gnarly. I didn't like seeing my nipple grafts. I didn't like not having sensation. And I have a couple of homies right now who are in various stages of getting bottom surgery, and they're brave, they're strong, they're warriors. That's all I will say, because I'm not cut out for that, point blank period. So we're reaching that 9-month mark, and that's around when my mustache starts to really mustache, right? And facial hair is something that I'm still developing. Like I said, I'm just over 6 years on testosterone, and the facial hair is still growing. Like I would say every 4 months, I might notice that some hair is growing more on my jawline, or my neck beard is getting a little bit stronger. So at this point, do I think I'm gonna grow a whole entire beard? No, like that would be super cool, but I just don't think it's in the cards. I tried minoxidil, I tried microneedling, all of that. I have so many things going on. I don't have the time to try to get into my Viking bag and grow a beard, so it's okay. I'm happy with what I got, but I would definitely say, you know, that's the time period where I started to notice that things did pick up facial hair wise. Facial hair is one of those changes where it still keeps going after 5 years, right? I've had some people tell me, Devin, I'm at my 7th year on testosterone, and all of a sudden I'm able to grow a full beard. So people say that changes stop after 5 years, but that's simply just not true. The changes are less big, but they're still very very much so there and happening. So one of the more dysphoria relieving changes that I could not wait for was my cycle stopping. This one was really tough. My cycle hung around for a long time, y'all. I'm talking, I would message my endocrinologist on my chart and I would be like, hey, it's been 4 months. My cycle is still here. Can you help? What can we do? She was like, it stops when it stops, brother. Funnily enough, and I'm hoping that I'm remembering this as accurately as it happened, at one point I was spotting for 2 weeks straight. Being on testosterone for around 8 months, I was spotting for 2 weeks straight. I was going through it mentally. Guys, imagine that I was looking like a dude already, everything like that, but I had to walk around with a pad. I was just like, fucking shoot me. This is terrible. I couldn't deal with it. I was reaching out to my endocrinologist, all this stuff, and she was like, your hormones are just evening out, bro. You have to be patient. You just have to deal with it a little bit. And lo and behold, I spotted for 2 weeks, and then after that, I never got my cycle again. So the human body is interesting. It has various ways that it works, and you do have to be mentally strong sometimes when it does come to these things, because it just sucks. It just sucks so much. And you feel like everyone knows, you feel like people can smell you, you feel like people can see you're wearing a diaper essentially. But you have to understand that when it comes to a lot of these things, your brain and your hormones are making it out to be a bigger deal than it actually is. Because I swear to God, for myself personally, it felt like whenever my estrogen was higher, that came with a side of paranoia. I felt like everybody knew, but in fact, nobody knew. I was just being a jerk to myself. Since we are on the subject of hormones, I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a baseline of the blood work that your doctor should be ordering. At this point, I have worked with over hundreds of trans homies who are on testosterone, and I've seen a wide array of different blood works. I reviewed different blood works because, making sure that we are autonomous and that we can advocate for ourselves is a big part of what I do as a coach. Obviously, I'm not giving, dosage advice or anything like that. I'm no one's doctor, but a lot of us are not as, well informed as we should be. So just some basic markers that your doctor should definitely be testing for. Obviously, total testosterone, but your doctor should also be testing your estradiol to see how your estrogen is reacting to your testosterone. So testosterone can have a stifling effect on estrogen. At a certain point, testosterone actually aromatizes, which means that it increases your estrogen. So if your testosterone is too high, your estrogen will also become high, and then you're just gonna be battling it out. That comes with mood swings, everything like that. So you definitely wanna have your doctor testing for that, as well as your hematocrit and your hemoglobin, your liver enzymes, your cholesterol, your LDL, your HDL, making sure that those are nice and balanced. And then your doctor ideally should also be testing your blood pressure. But if your doctor is not testing your blood pressure, many grocery stores and pharmacies have a self-testing area. I know Walmart has a little blood pressure cuff monitor over there. Publix does, CVS does. I think Walgreens may or may not, or you could just also buy one. It's usually like $50 and you could just have it at home, because especially if you're genetically predisposed to this, testosterone can raise your blood pressure. And then obviously we know if your blood pressure is elevated for a long period of time, your kidneys will suffer, heart attack, all those kinds of things. So you definitely wanna make sure that your cardiovascular health is on track. And also, obviously, me being someone who makes YouTube videos, me being someone who makes content, I did do a great job of kind of tracking everything visually. I took pictures, I took videos, all this kind of stuff. But there are some changes that you may want to document that are not so much physical, right? One big thing that I discuss with y'all a lot is how much my mindset changed being on testosterone, how I felt so victimized and how I could not speak up for myself before I was on testosterone, and then how being on T helped me just become more of myself, how I had more clarity. And I do wish that I had journaled, whether that's with a notebook, old-fashioned style, or even if I had a laptop and wrote my feelings down, or even if I just set up my phone and I was just talking to it and I was like, hey Devin, you're 4 months on T, today you actually stood up for yourself. I feel as though that is going to be something that's so priceless. So don't just only get caught up in the external changes, also document those internal changes. Are you sleeping better? Do you feel more sure of yourself? You're a human, you're a whole human. You're more than just the flesh. You also have a soul and a spirit, and our spirits can evolve, which I think is super cool. If you do not yet follow me on Instagram, we're shooting for 40K there. So definitely go ahead and check it out. That will be linked in the description below. And like I always say, Devin loves you, Devin's a Don, and Devin is out of here, boy.